Welcome to the 10-Minute Tuesday show. Today, as everyone else is going to talk about, it's about the coronavirus. But I'm not going to talk about the virus, I'm talking about the fear that surrounds it. It's like when snakes attack. Do you know the legend of St. Patrick? And today is St. Patrick's Day. So the legend of St. Patrick is he was praying off by himself, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's attacked by all these snakes in Ireland. And he gathered them all up and threw them off the cliff and said, "Not today, snakes." And that's what I want to accomplish today, is for you to be able to say, "Not today, snakes." Is that when the things of life come out of nowhere to attack, how do we deal with this? Do we deal in fear? Do we deal with anger? Do we deal with all sorts of emotions that are counterproductive, like running over people with a buggy that aren't even trying to get things just so you can get your thing of soap? That's not the response. What we talk about in hype hysteria of this COVID-19 that has created this monster in regards to the way we deal with people. I mean, you go into the grocery store and you see all these snakes everywhere that are vying and fighting and trying to get theirs. But in this hysteria, we can either have two things, like I said. We can be motivated by selfishness or courage. You know, fear says ego. It says, it's all about me. I've got to get what I need to get. But courage says Elohim. Fear says ego. Courage says Elohim. If you don't know what that word is, it's a Hebrew word for God. And St. Patrick was famous, more or less, for trying to wrap the Trinity in a concept people could understand. Some people say the Trinity is a pagan concept because it's a mother, baby, father. You've got Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz, and all of them split off of everything else. So you got Horus and all these other Egyptian things and all these other songs. But if you look at the Bible, you believe in the Bible, you accept what the Bible says, you cannot deny that there are three characteristics, three parts to who God is. Elohim, the word Elohim in Hebrew means gods, superior ones. It's not singular, it's plural. So we have to understand that in that word Elohim, there's multiple facets to who he is. We see his spirit work in the Old Testament, and we see his son arrive incarnated in the New Testament, which are all one testament. There's not an old and a new. It's all one linear story. And then we see the Spirit arrive on the day of Shavuot, what some people call Pentecost. So you see a three-part. So that is Elohim, all of who God is, the fullness of the Godhead. I said that in one of the prior week's episode. The fullness of the Godhead lives within us. We are complete if we believe in who Jesus is and what he has done and the sacrifice he's made. And we live our life out, not in fear, not in our ego of ourself, of I have to get that last bit of food or I'm going to die, but in faith and in courage. Remember, Charles Spurgeon what he said was just excellent. He goes, sudden death is sudden glory. I'm not saying or advocating anything to perish. But if you catch this virus because you were ministering to people, he goes, I'm not worried about cholera. The bacteria that was in the water that was causing severe intestinal issues and people dying during Spurgeon's time. He goes, I'm not worried about catching that. If I minister the gospel to people who are sick at home and I happen to catch that, I have done my job. Sudden death is sudden glory. And how can he say that? How can he go, I'm not worried about that? Because, we have this pre-trib, post-trib, amillennial stuff of like the rapture and everything. Well, I'm panmillennium. It's all going to pan out in the end. So if you know Jesus, he knows you, you know Elohim, there's really nothing to fear. The death of the saint is glorious because this is just a temporary blip, a dust in the wind. This is a very just kind of a vapor. This life is. The next adventure, the spiritual realm, the infinite, in heaven, and with Jehovah himself. That is the great adventure. So we get wrapped up in the selfishness of our egos. We have to have everything, the tangible, the materialistic right now. They got the last roll of toilet paper. But what does it matter? You can find other resources. And for those that don't have other resources, find somebody who can help. That's the whole point of this ministry, is to not just hoard everything for yourselves, but to be able to have what you need and be able to be a blessing with your abundance. Remember, fear says ego. Courage says Elohim. So outside of this body, where do we live? We live in the spirit world. We are a soul, flesh, spirit. So if this body perishes, we are now become infinite, which is an amazing concept. But fear of this flesh tries to grip everything. The snakes of our flesh tried to come and attach themselves to us. And we just have to shake them off and say, not today, snakes. This is not who I am. And you are not allowed here on this island. And throw them off the cliff, just like St. Patrick. I love what Samuel's told Saul. Saul was becoming arrogant in himself. He was told to accomplish something, and he did not do it. And Samuel goes, rebellion is a sin of witchcraft, and arrogance is the evil of idolatry. But if you look at the word rebellion, it just means rejection. To reject what is existent, to reject that courage, to live in himself, to live in the selfishness. Rejection of Jehovah is the same as the sorcery of being obstinate and is self-worship. So when we fear, we are worshiping ourselves. We are trying to keep our eyes on how I can control, how I can puppet master. Jesus takes his boys all the way up to Caesarea Philippi, up near northern parts of Israel. And there was these places where there's this very grotesque sacrifices where they would slaughter children, where they would worship all these foreign gods. They had niches carved out in the side of the mountain where they would place idols all over the place. And they had an altar to Pan, which was a very perverse deity where they would sacrifice infants to there. And he takes his boys and his followers up to this area in Caesarea Philippi and starts talking to them. Who do men say that I am? Some say you're a prophet. Some say you're John the Baptist. Some say Jeremiah. And then, who do you say that I am? Peter goes, you are the Christ. You are Yeshua Mashiach, Son of God. That needs to be our response to all this fear. Who do you say he is? Who is God in this fear? Do you say ego, or in courage do you say Elohim? Do you answer that question? Who do you say that I am? If you do not know Yeshua, if you do not know Jesus, I encourage you, reach out to me. Reach out to someone around you that might know, and we can talk and show you who he is. You open the Bible, start reading in the book of Matthew. It is amazing who Jesus is. And you see him in the Old Testament, all throughout the Old Testament. And then you see him in the Gospels. The story is all about him. So if you don't know him, if you need that courage of who Elohim is, call out his name. He will save you. He will hear your cry. It says, those who call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. And I can't tell you how many times that I've yelled out Yeshua and rescue has come. So if you are needing that courage, who do you say that I am? Who do you say that Jesus is? In this chaos of this COVID-19, which is, in my opinion, is an overblown hysteria. Many medical professions disagree with me. Many medical professions agree with me. So we will find out. But right now we're seeing the idiocy of people on display. The snakes everywhere. So we need to come to grips with this reality, respect this reality, but not fear this reality. Courage, says Elohim, not today, snakes. That needs to be our attitude. And to understand who he is. When we can understand who he is, we can easily say, not today, snakes. And let God be God. We go about our mission just as any other day, respecting those around us. Wash your hands. Respect those around you. Quarantine yourself if you have to. That's kosher. That is in the Torah, to quarantine yourself if you have something wrong with you, so you don't exponentially spread it to everyone else. Be wise. But also do not be in fear. Be encouraged. Be full of courage, because Elohim is in you. The fullness of the Godhead body dwells within your soul, and you are complete.